Hello, and welcome to another Bible study video, which I must say is a long time that I've been wanting to do things. I've been wanting to talk more things about the Bible and everything. I've been trying to figure out, like, okay, Lord, what should I be doing? What should I talk about or anything? Because I want to get more in a habit of talking about more things, because if I'm going to do like any teaching or something or talk about stuff in the future, I need to get used to the idea of doing so. So what I decided to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been reading through Jeremiah. And the reason I've been reading through Jeremiah, one, continuing to read and everything, but also to understand everything that's going on. I would say on the prophets, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, I'm a little bit more weaker on with everything. So this isn't exactly a book review type thing. I'm not even done reading through it. And I've read it several times before. It's just another time reading through it. Read through several things several times before. I mean, part of being a Christian is, not thinking you understand every single little thing or that, oh yeah, I got it. No, the Lord could show you, you could read a verse like 100 times, and then on the 101st time, you're like totally new on what it is and what it means and everything. So this is more, I'm on chapter 52 now, but this will be about mostly who Jeremiah was and everything up to this point. So, and yes, this is the military Bible thing. To give consideration to Jeremiah, Jeremiah was a prophet of the tribe of Levi, or at least, well, it doesn't actually say Levi. Well, I'm going to say he was probably tribe of Levi. He was at least a priest, but he lived in the land of Benjamin and everything, which is allowed, during the waning days of Judah. You probably mean, what do I mean by that? The kingdom of Judah, again, Israel got split after the time of Solomon. Rehoboam ruled the south, and Jeroboam ruled the northern tribes of Israel. The 10 tribes of Israel that went north, and the 2 tribes and everyone else who didn't want to submit to Jeroboam stayed with Rehoboam and everything in Jerusalem. That came Judah, and the other tribes became like Israel. Israel had already been conquered and taken away, and now Judah's turn was coming up. Now Josiah, if you go into 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, Josiah was the grandson of Manasseh. Again, this is all from the tribe, it's all from the line of David. Josiah was a king who began to rule about 8 years old and everything, ruled about 31 years. He was righteous before the Lord, despite, Manasseh's horrible things. Manasseh was like the wickedest king in Judah's time. But if you read, I think it is in 2 Chronicles, a lot of people don't know Manasseh actually repented at the end of his life because he got captured and he cried out to the Lord delivered him, and he tried to undo everything that he did. He tried to change everything, but it was too late. And he died shortly after that, and Ammon, his son, continued on everything that he was doing originally that was bad. It's believed Isaiah was killed by Manasseh, sawn in half. That's how bad he was at the time, even though he did repent at the end. But how does that deal with Josiah? Well, during the time of Manasseh, it was like a big degradation of morality, again, away from the Lord's word and away from his commandments and everything. They had lost the law, literally. They found the book of the law somewhere in the temple, and they read it before Josiah, and he tore his clothes and everything. And he said, this where we have great destruction and everything, because everything commanded in the law, which is what people believe may be probably the book of Deuteronomy, because it covers, everything. So he said he was repentant and everything, but he asked, okay, we have all this disaster on us. Go find Huldah the prophetess who's living in Jerusalem to find out what we could do. Interesting, Huldah, she is one of the few women in scriptures referred to as a prophetess. The other one being Deborah, and I think there's some in the New Testament too. There's a couple others, but predominantly, one of the ones named. And she lived in Israel. Her husband, one of his fathers or grandfathers was named, I was looking at earlier, his name was Tikva, which means hope. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before. But she was in Jerusalem. She lived in the second quarter. They asked her what was going to happen. She said, yeah, disasters come to Judah. You're going to get famine. You're going to get conquered. You're going to get taken out of the land. And that was going to be Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. But what she says, because Josiah was penitent before the Lord, and he was horrified about everything and he was repentant and he was like, Lord, I want to change all this, she said that, Josiah, you're not going to see the destruction that's coming. You're going to be taken away beforehand. And that would happen. Josiah went to a battle which he was told maybe you shouldn't go against Pharaoh, and he did, and he died in it later on. But how does that deal with Jeremiah? Well, Jeremiah was around this time. I actually looked at how long Jeremiah was. There was like a movie on Jeremiah, like a long time ago. Someone did. And they made it look like it was just kind of like around Zedekiah's reign, like towards the end of Zedekiah or anything. Like Zedekiah only ruled a couple years? No. You have the four sons of Josiah that came through. You have like Jehoiachin, Jehoahaz, their names are all close together and everything. Fourth one's Zedekiah. But one reign, just from when Jeremiah was called, was 13 years into Josiah's reign. So 13 years into Josiah's reign, Josiah would have been about 21 at the time because he started reading at 8, so he was about 21. The book of the law wasn't read till his 18th year, till he was 26. So Jeremiah predates Josiah by 5 years. And you see already then, Jeremiah was already starting to be raised up to talk about things going on with Judah and everything. Because despite everything Josiah did, because Josiah tried changing everything in the land. He tried changing everyone back to the commandments, getting rid of Sodomites, getting rid of this, getting rid of that, getting rid of all the Baal worshipers, getting rid of everything and having them turn back to the Lord. And Jeremiah was during that time and everything, because despite everything Josiah was doing, it still seems like people were still doing stuff on the side. And we know that to be true because once Josiah passed away, you see how quickly they turned back, even his own sons. And that's where Jeremiah really finds everything going on. So you have 18 years from when Jeremiah was called in Josiah's reign. He reigned for 31, but for 18 years you see where Jeremiah was. Then 11 years with his next son. Well, there was one son, but he only reigned like a few months, and then he got taken away by Egypt. And then the next one reigned 11, the next one reigned 8, the next one reigned 11. It's about 48 years. So but almost 50 years you have Jeremiah, like, prophesizing and trying to tell people to turn back to the Lord for almost 50 years. That's actually a lot longer than I think a lot of people give credit for, that Jeremiah was actually doing that for that long. Even when he got carried away basically into Egypt, he was still trying to prophesize and everything like that. So for 50 years, he was trying to reach out to Judah, and they just wouldn't listen. And it's just sad. Jeremiah, you see all the stuff he went through. There's different things that happened to him in the scripture. The Lord told him he's not going to get married. He doesn't get married. He doesn't have kids. So he doesn't have any lineage or anything. I guess it was kind of a sign per se. But the Lord, you can say he was really put through the ringer, but it was a sign of everything that, what Israel was doing. Or I keep saying Israel, but Judah was doing to the Lord, how unfaithful they were, and how they were just kept ignoring everything they kept ignoring and everything. He got persecuted by the different kings several times. He got beaten. He got imprisoned. He was let down like in a cistern or a well or something to try to be drowned in the mud, and he got saved by one of the eunuchs and everything. You have one famous story of Hananiah trying to say, no, the Lord's going to break off the yoke of... Because Jeremiah put like a yoke of wood on himself and was saying, this is what's going to happen. Submit. Don't do these things you're trying to do. Then your life will be long. And I broke that off, saying, no, the Lord's going to do this and that instead. Jeremiah said, no, you're going to be dead within a year. And Hananiah was, in fact, dead within a year. Because Hananiah was trying to prophesy in the name of the Lord. And he wasn't part of anything you said. Jeremiah was hated a lot by Judah because they were trying to say, no, you're not for the Lord. You're prophesying disaster towards us and everything. You're not sent by the Lord. No, these people are sent by the Lord. But it turns out who was really sent by the Lord? Jeremiah was, not these people. They wouldn't want to listen to Jeremiah. And, he has a letter sent to to one of the kings. It wasn't Zedekiah. It was the one before him. Jehoiachin? So I get some of the names mixed up. And he's just every time they read a page, he's taking it, throwing it in the fire, taking it, throwing it in the fire, even though his servants are maybe you shouldn't do that. He's taking it, throwing it in the fire. after every single thing that's read. And Jeremiah says to Baruch, rewrite the whole thing, submit it to this and that. Because he kept saying, you're going to get taken away to Babylon, you're going to get taken away to Babylon, you're going to get taken away to Babylon, and they just wouldn't listen. I mean, they could have avoided probably a lot of things if they listened, but they didn't. I just reached 52 today, and yes, there's prophesying against Ammon, against Moab, against Babylon itself, for everything that Babylon says. Is prophesied that he's going to say, hey, Babylon, you're going to get taken over by the Medes and Persians, which didn't happen. But like one big example was it Johanan. One thing, I mean, you can literally see everything that goes wrong with Jeremiah is, how they don't listen to him despite everything. Most of most of Judah gets taken and thrown away or carried away to Babylon. There are those left in the land, like the poor and everyone else that said, okay, you're going to stay in the land, and they're going to be like, you're going to be giving stuff, making food for us, blah, 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 Well, that governor got killed for, quote unquote, working with the Babylonians, and then Johanan and these other guys were like, Jeremiah, tell us what we should do, and we're going to listen to it, because that's what they said that he was going to do. And Jeremiah was like, okay, I'll go to the Lord, and I think after about 10 days, or it might have been a couple of days, he comes back, and he tells them, all right, this is what you're going to do. Don't go down to Egypt. He literally spells out for them, don't do these things, and don't go to Egypt. Just do what I tell you, and then don't go down to Egypt. And after everything he said, and not to mention everything prior that he said was going to happen, was, despite all the false prophets and everything, Jeremiah was the one that was right. So you could say, yes, the Lord sent him. Everything he said has come to pass. And Johanan and all the others were like, no, the Lord hasn't sent you. Baruch is sending you against us or anything. You're not from the Lord. Because their hearts were to go down to Egypt. And they did. They went down to Egypt, and they continued the crap that the Lord said don't do that got them in the trouble in the first place. And despite they say, oh, we're going to be safe from Babylon there, no, guess what happened? Babylon came knocking. So it's just, of course, Jeremiah went with them, and he's still trying to turn them to the Lord throughout the whole time. So persistence, crying out, because a lot of times Jeremiah says didn't want to speak at all, and yet the Lord kept, it says like he kept burning inside him that he can't not hold it back, and so he had to speak. And really, when you look at Jeremiah's life, you could say it's very sad. That's why they call him Weeping Prophet. You can say that everything, because everything he tried doing, he was just sorry about. I mean, Lamentations is contributed to be about Jeremiah, and that's my favorite verse in it, Lamentations 3:24. Lord is my portion, saith my soul, therefore shall I hope in him. It's just, despite everything that went on, Jeremiah was still trying to reach Israel throughout the whole thing, which I guess is a picture of the Lord, despite everything Judah, Israel as a whole, despite everything they were doing and rebelling against him and him having to discipline them, he was still trying to reach them in the discipline. And because he loved them. He did. He loved his people. He loves his people. It's just hard-hearted, stiff-necked, stony hearts, stony flesh, whatever you want to call it. It's just their rebellion and disobedience ran deep. And yet Jeremiah and the Lord still kept trying to reach out to them and everything. But that's what I've gotten for Jeremiah so far. It's just a short little thing. I believe it's contributed that people think that Jeremiah hid the Ark of the Covenant, because a lot of people wonder what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. I think they believe Jeremiah hid it somewhere. Like, they don't know where, because the Ark disappeared and then everyone doesn't know what happened to it. It's kind of believed that maybe Jeremiah hid it somehow. Some think maybe it got taken, but I don't know. No one knows really what happened to it. I mean, you have the Indiana Jones thing, like, no one knows what happened to it. Well, maybe Jeremiah hid it, and hid it in a spot that no one's going to get. But anyway, it's fine. But I would say, if the Lord's telling you something, To say and do it. Don't hesitate, just do it. And have you read Jeremiah? Tell me what you think about it. What's your favorite verse from Jeremiah? What do you think about Jeremiah's story? What do you think about Judah's story in that time? I keep saying Israel, but Judah's. And just tell me what you think. All right, see you in the next one.